My name is Maddy Boehme, and I am Vice President of HESA, a nonprofit that was formed to create awareness, research, and support of people with Hashimoto's encephalopathy and seronegative autoimmune encephalitis. Today, we will be interviewing Kayli Hassebrock, who was diagnosed with LG1 autoimmune encephalitis. Good afternoon, Kayli.
Hello.
Thank you so much for sitting down today to discuss your journey with autoimmune encephalitis. So first, let's start off. How old were you when you were diagnosed with AE?
So my diagnosis of autoimmune encephalitis in general happened almost coming up on 5 years ago. So I believe I was 23 when I was originally diagnosed, and I'm 27. I'm actually 28 in a week. So
hey, happy almost birthday.
Thank you.
And can I ask, how long did it take for you to get diagnosed?
So once I think I'm one of the lucky ones in the sense that once we actually started looking for something neurological, we started in, I think, February, can't say that month, February of 2017, I think, or 2018, memory problems. And I was diagnosed by the end of that July of that year.
Oh, wow.
But from the time everything actually started, I was around 17. And there were some telltale signs that there was neurological things going on. But as I'm sure we'll talk about later, I got caught in the mental health system. So
yes, so many people end up, being pushed into kind of the mental health system, and then often end up in kind of like the in-between, back and forth between it's psychological. Absolutely. No, it's not. So basically, what kind of symptoms did you first experience when everything started?
So mine was, looking back, I was experiencing sort of numbness everywhere and not being able to feel parts of my body. And knowing what it is now, I was a 17-year-old having no idea what was going on. It was that I started sleeping all day and being awake all night. My sleep schedule sort of just completely toppled over, upside down, and memory problems started happening. I remember I was in my physics class, and I was just sitting there, and everything had made sense the day before, and we were just reviewing everything we knew already. And I remember sitting there, and all of a sudden, just nothing made sense. And I remember thinking, what is this? Like, he said a really basic term, and I just remember thinking, we've never talked about that, and we'd been spending like the whole semester on it. Yes. It was that, and then the rest of it was pretty much neuropsychiatric, in that I was dealing with really severe mood swings, and I was hallucinating, and I started to become delusional, which was interesting. I had a lot of religious delusions and things like that, and just a lot of impulsive behaviors. So it was like a regular teenager's hormone problems times 100 to me.
Yeah.
It seemed like,
that's a good way to put it.
In hindsight, I was like, how did my parents not just abandon me? I don't
but I totally understand that, having been diagnosed around the same age too. Yes. So what were some of the diagnoses you were given prior to finally coming to the conclusion of autoimmune encephalitis?
So there's a lot. I guarantee you I can't remember all of them. So from the age of 17 until now, it's been, when I was 17, it was oppositional defiance disorder. And I remember, ironically, I was really upset about it and was being defiant about that diagnosis, but the irony. And then it was pretty much just depression at that point, because my pediatric psychiatrist told me that it was normal for teenagers to experience hallucinations because of hormones.
What?
And
What? I've never heard that before from any.
I have,
I don't feel like it's normal for teenagers to
it's,
experience hallucinations.
yeah, I didn't know anything about mental health at that point, and like depression was new to me. Even though I kind of had dealt with depression my whole life, I never understood what it was. I just remember thinking that doesn't seem right.
Yeah, no, that seems a little out there.
Yeah. So it was pretty much just depression until I was about 20, because I went a couple years. I randomly felt better. Ended up working full time for those couple years. That's all I did. And then when I was about 20, things just came crashing down, and I started having the same issues I did when I was 17, and which would establish a pattern. But at the time, it was new to me. And I went to a psychologist, and the first diagnosis was bipolar 1. And then it went to schizoaffective bipolar type. And then there's been some really little things here and there alongside bipolar 1. It was borderline personality disorder, which with my behaviors at the time, I honestly, even now with autoimmune encephalitis, I'm genuinely wondering, okay, I think I really did deal with that. I'm not really sure, but also neuropsychiatric issues with autoimmune encephalitis also coincide with the symptoms of borderline. So again, huge gray area, but the borderline really took precedence alongside the bipolar. Even though it moved to schizoaffective, it was still mostly being treated as the bipolar aspect. And I ended up in some pretty intensive therapy programs. So I did a couple years of a group therapy program called STEPS, which was actually developed for people with borderline personality disorder, and also worked for people with bipolar. So I did that, and then there was a follow-up group. It was a year long, and the first one was 6 months. I guess I should have clarified that. So it was mine was 2 hours per week, every week for 6 months for the first program, STEPS. And then the second one was still, I believe, 2 hours per week for a year. And that was called Stairways. And basically it was emotional regulation, control, learning interpersonal relationships, that sort of thing. To be completely honest, I wish every single person had access to this instead of being put in the box of something's wrong with you. You need to learn how to do all this. And I just remember thinking, I was a little offended. I was like, I think everyone needs to learn this,
how to process emotions and things like that. Yeah.
Yes. And at the time, I was completely off my rocker, and I really did need it. And it was genuinely life-saving for me, and also for my relationships. But yeah, I just remember feeling targeted with that. But and then things just floated by. Official diagnoses really stuck around that schizoaffective bipolar type, bipolar 1, that sort of thing. Borderline never really left the page. So that was something that actually became a problem. So when I started to realize that I had been experiencing neurological issues, borderline really took precedence. So everything I said was disregarded because they thought I was doing it for attention. And then because of that, I was diagnosed with histrionic personality disorder, which is, to my knowledge, essentially like an attention-seeking disorder. And at the time, I could see that because I was acting out because I knew something was wrong.
Yes.
And no one would listen to me. So I did become over the top with what was going on, as opposed to now where, we're like, oh, wow, I just slept for 16 hours and I can't feel my legs. Like now it's like, okay, just another day. But at the time, I
just another day to sleep
Yes.
16 hours and not feel your legs. Like,
Yes.
just another day in the life of Kayli.
And at the time, I made sure everyone in my house knew it, you know, that sort of thing, because I didn't think I was getting, I was definitely overcompensating for, you know, not being taken seriously. But yeah, there's been a lot of various things that have floated by over the years. Dissociative disorders were a big one. Trying to think of other random things. But
so you've basically faced a lot of the psychological, you've explored a lot of the psychological side of things before you got to the neurological side. Very, very thoroughly explored. And how many doctors or psychologists, or do you even know? Just lots.
As far as like medical doctors, one hand I can name it on. Other side, mental health, couldn't tell you. Just like the psych medications I've been on, I could not tell you. I just know most of the time when I look at a medication, I'm like, yeah, I've been on that. But
tried every trick in the book. Like,
as far as
that's amazing though.
As far as mental health professionals, it's just been too many to count.
You exhausted that side of medicine.
Yes.
You know what? I mean, I know you spoke a little bit to this, saying, you know, you sort of acted out and stuff during this time, you know, like what were your feelings, you know, knowing something was wrong, but, you know, nobody's taking you seriously, nothing is really working. You know, what were you feeling? What have you been feeling through this whole journey?
Oh gosh, that's a whole can of worms. So I'll try to summarize it as best I can.
No. Go ahead, elaborate.
Okay. Because I think everyone in this space to some degree has some sort of trauma surrounding this. So for me it was, oh God. I mean, honestly, I think it destroyed my life, to be quite frank about it. I lost a lot of relationships. The relationships with my immediate family members was really damaged because for a while there, for about a year, I became obsessed in finding out what was going on because I knew something was happening to me. And I had been, you know, I think this was when I was 22 or 23, shortly before I got diagnosed. And I'd been dealing with the psychiatric side for about, I don't know, 5 or 6, 7, I can't do math, years, 5 or 6 years at that point. And as you said earlier, we had exhausted everything. It was at that point where mental health professionals literally would say they didn't know what to tell me. One common sentence that was said by the majority of mental health professionals that I saw was, let's just wait and see. And that's what I got told for virtually that entire time. Even when I was 17, the guy said something along the lines of, okay, well, we'll wait and see as you get older or something like that. And I'm like, okay, that one makes sense a little bit, you know. But yeah, that was something that kept getting repeated. And I remember being upset on a regular basis because like, okay, we've waited and seen that nothing's happening. It's getting worse. And all I did was continue to spiral from about the age of 22. It just spiraled out of control because that was the last time I held a full-time job. And I had a really good career going. And yeah, I had known something was wrong. And because I was on primarily the psychiatric side, almost it felt like no one was listening to me. And unfortunately, evidence in my life that I'm finding out now, a lot of people weren't actually listening to me. So that pretty much threw me into an existential crisis every day.
Really?
Yeah,
You were that threw you out of whack to, have people telling you
isn't that crazy?
not figuring out what was wrong with you.
Yeah. And I don't even say that lightly. It was genuinely every single day of, why am I here? What's really going on? Am I supposed to deal with this? Is this, like an eternal damnation situation? I was entering a lot of really, really, really dark spaces. I was like hurting myself, those sorts of things, because I didn't have a way to express them. Because what I regularly felt like was that I was screaming and no one was listening. And unfortunately, there were times that did actually literally happen. There was quite a while in this time period where everyone around me was so used to me just being a basket case to them, essentially.
Mhm.
So there were a lot of times where I would be just visibly just extremely upset, and literally like people would just look at me and just walk past like I was a lampshade or something. It was
like, I was a lampshade.
Yeah, like it was so weird.
Yeah, they just kind of ignored
Yes, and it was
the problem.
felt like I was in a really long fever dream almost. Oh God, yeah. Hopefully this is remotely making sense, because looking back, that was such a chaotic and negative time. And yeah, I'm just glad to still be here, and I'm thankful for people like you that I had in my life to be able to be one of the very few that believed what I was saying. And yeah, and like it's been nuts. And my mom, when I was originally diagnosed 4 or so years ago, that was her moment of, wow, something's actually going on. And once that happened, just everything turned around dramatically. And it was just sort of crazy to see the difference in how people treated me, even mental health professionals or regular, medicine professionals. I'm not really sure, my words are not working there, but anyways.
When you finally get taken seriously. Yeah. And you, for so long, having knowing a little bit of your journey, and just knowing how long that you have suffered and not been taken seriously, I don't blame you for feeling the way that you feel or felt, and just wanting to, feeling like you're in this fever dream where you're not dead, but you're not really living either.
Right. That's purgatory.
Yeah. And just thinking about, all those professionals that were telling you, we'll just wait and see what happens, and nothing was getting better. And that is so detrimental to autoimmune encephalitis, because this is not a disease you can just wait it out.
Now working with my current doctor, my last appointment, she said right out that she's not sure, because even though I was diagnosed when I was 23, 24, that was with a different type. And then that one came into question. And then I went untreated for another 4 or so years. So that was a whole other thing on its own. It was kind of like the existential crisis amped up times a couple. And it was even worse because I knew it'd been confirmed something was wrong. And then I was being, sort of side railed, or however they want to call it.
Well, then for them to say something is wrong and then have it taken back after how many years that you have been saying something is not right.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I didn't finish that sentence I was trying to say. I'm proud of myself. I can eventually get the train around. kind of. If it's like one sentence.
Yes.
But
Sometimes
yeah,
it just has to load a little bit.
it's gotta go for a while. But yeah, my current doctor said because of the amount of long-standing issues that I've had and not being treated on a regular basis, because I was on steroids for a short period of time and that changed everything, but I was taken off of them. And she said right out in my last appointment that she doesn't know the extent of damage that is probably permanent. It was a sad conversation, but it was actually really empowering because she told me right out, and I'd never had a professional of any capacity say this. And she said, I'm really proud of you for getting through this and
Yeah.
still, surviving up until this point. And she said, now it's our time to, she said, we have control now, knowing what's going on, we have control, whereas before we did not. I wish I had the exact words that she said. My sister transcribed the whole conversation, so she has it. But yeah, it was really nice. But also that was my wake up call that this had been going on for so long. Because I hadn't known something was wrong this whole time, and it was crazy and chaotic. But once I actually got the actual name of it and what was going on and understood what was truly happening, I didn't want to accept it. There was a period of time where I was like, is science real? I don't want to deal with it. And I've never been that kind of person. So it really threw me for a loop. But that was the moment when she said, we weren't sure of the extent of permanent damage that might have been done. That was my wow. This is really
when
happening.
Things really connected. And after so many people have told you nothing is wrong.
Yes.
It's not, and finally getting to somebody that says, yes, here's the problem.
Yes, and we have concrete evidence to prove it. So
yes, that's that amazing.
Was one of the irritating parts. I'm like, okay, so all these people that told me nothing was wrong, they didn't have concrete reason to say there wasn't. And in hindsight, okay, I can wrap my head around that, but that's whole of a discussion. But now it's really weird.
Yeah, you're kind of in, so I know this is very recent for you that you found a new doctor that has really listened to you and has been able to help provide this concrete evidence and help get you going on the right path, which I am just so glad having been on this journey for a couple of years with you. I'm just very glad because seeing, being on this journey with you for like a couple of years, I think it's criminal what has happened to you. And I'm very inspired by you. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
I'm very inspired by you. I think you are I know a lot of people with this, given being the vice president of HESA, but I think you have suffered the longest of anybody that I know. And you also have lost a very large part of your youth. And to me, that's just, that's something you can't get back. And that really makes me angry for you. Yeah. We'll just get all emotional up in here. So this is emotional and this is traumatic. And so anyways, I'll get back to
thank you for that
topic.
Like, I don't like it when the people around me get sad because of like something that happened to me, because I've been so used to bottling everything up and just being like, after trying to get people's attention, I just shut down for a long time. Mm-hmm. So I don't like it when people around me, are sad because of something with me, but I also appreciate it because empathy is a really nice thing, and it makes me, I don't know, it's one of those things that just, you're not alone, and we've both struggled with it so much.
Yes.
It's just really nice to have your people, you know what I mean?
Yes, that's definitely been like on
Yeah.
my whole journey, your journey, just being able
Yeah.
to connect with other people and be like, oh, really? Like, I'm not crazy. Like, you experience that too.
Yeah. Like, I literally would not have been able, like, I'm not even kidding when I say, like, if it weren't for you being that one person in my
Oh,
corner for a long time, I'm serious. I would have given up a long time ago. I would have just been like, yep, something mysterious is wrong with me. I'll just be on disability the rest of my life. That's literally the point I was at. So a genuine, I feel like I try to
well,
tell you this.
it goes both ways, just so
Yeah.
you know. So I'm glad we can like keep each other
Yes.
fighting through all of
Yes.
this madness. So yeah, speaking on to now that you found a doctor
Right.
who is gonna help you and moving forward, what kind of
Mhm.
treatments are you thinking, is she thinking about doing?
So, off the bat, she wants to do IVIG and rituximab. And that's how you pronounce it? I'm
Yes.
not sure.
Yep.
Okay.
You got it.
Okay. So those are the first two to work with. Plasma pheresis would have been a more viable option if I had been more acutely treated.
Yes. Yeah.
So her and I joke that we're only almost like 8 or 9 years too late. It's fine.
Yeah, only.
So we are able to joke about it, which makes it so much easier. But yeah, so that would be less helpful because of the long-standing issues. So Rituxan, IVIG, and then for maintenance, trying to recall, I think it was Actemra maybe for maintenance.
Yeah,
And
that
then
could be.
yeah, and then she mentioned something else about Cellcept,
Yes.
maybe introducing that in if we needed to, but yeah, that's been the sort of game plan. So
Well, that sounds very promising. Or how do you feel about all that?
I'm excited about it, but as you know, and everyone in the space knows, that infusions are a nightmare to get.
Yes, yeah. So what kind of like difficulties have you experienced trying to get all of those things organized?
So originally, when they sent the orders, it went to a pharmacy solutions place near where I live that does at-home infusions, and that did get approved for me like right off the bat with insurance. I was kind of shocked. But the problem was because the price would be higher, because I also have Medicare. So the Medicare wouldn't have been able to come in and help take care of the deductible from my primary insurance because it was home infusions. But if I did it at an infusion center, it was explained to me that they could take Medicare for it because it was a hospital type.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because between part A and B, it's like I don't have prescription insurance with Medicare, and Medicare is a whole can of worms, and I just spent a lot of time learning about it. A lot of crying nights over that one.
Yeah.
But thanks, Medicare. But it really swoops in when I need it, and I do appreciate it, even though I make jokes. But yeah, so it would be able to come in, and the hospital insurance aspect would be able to take care of a portion that the primary insurance didn't cover. But moving from that initial home infusion pharmacy to an actual infusion center, that's where things really got messed up. So I did find an infusion center, and I called the doctor's office. The nurse practitioner sent over the order to this infusion center, but they sent the wrong one.
Oh no.
Because there's 2 brands of rituximab I've been dealing with, and one of them I qualify for financial assistance, and one of them I do not. So she sent the one I do not qualify for there.
Course.
And this was after I'd spoken with the doctor, and she fully understood the situation. Like obviously, this is her her wheelhouse. So so we had that figured out to send the brand I do qualify for with their financial assistance program. And this nurse practitioner just didn't understand and kept sending the wrong one.
Oh no.
So the infusion center doesn't even do that one. They do the main brand.
Yes, yeah,
like
gotcha.
the original thing. And so I was like, okay, new plan. So that one kind of just, I don't even know what happened to that. I haven't heard anything. I talked to a lady from that infusion center. She's like, okay, yeah, they just need to send this over. We can get started. And that was it. And she just kept sending the wrong one. So I called around to different hospitals in my area, and there's one that has a cancer center, and it's really common that people in this area will go there to get these kinds of infusions. But because it is a bigger cancer center, there are people that have, more rare types of diagnoses that come from other doctors out of state. So they're used to working with that sort of thing. And just a spectrum of things. So I spoke to someone there, and she said that I would need to have my doctor contact the hospital. And then they said they have some administrative routes that they take to be able to get the infusions there. So they had that all set up, but it seemed like a more lengthy process. So I decided to kind of save that one as a last resort, which in hindsight, I should have just started with that. But here we are. There's another infusion center, another hospital. I'm really lucky. I'm in the middle of multiple major hospitals. But one of them I take my grandma to regularly for some infusion. She gets done, and they're really, really nice there. I love the nurses there. And I called them, and because they are smaller than the hospital with the cancer center, the big one in the area, they don't have the administrative protocols to be able to deal with out-of-state doctors. But she said they were really willing to figure it out, and just to give my doctor their numbers direct to the infusions director and figure it out. So that's what I'm working on right now, because ideally I would like to go to that hospital just because I already know that they do those types of infusions, and I really like them. It's just, I don't know, I felt comfortable there even when I was just hanging out with my grandma for a couple hours.
Yeah, you're familiar with it, so you might as well stick with what's familiar, kind of.
Also born there, so.
Oh, well, hey, cool. It looks like you belong there then.
Right? So ideally that can happen, but yeah, more bureaucratic
navigating
issues.
Yeah, just kind of navigating everything and dealing with, insurance has its own problems, and then sometimes the office has its own problems with, getting orders to the right people and getting faxed over correctly.
Yes, I've been having issues getting a hold of the right people I need to talk to. That's been one of my biggest things. But luckily that home care, like pharmacy solution that it was originally sent to, I talked to the main pharmacist there, and he was the one who told me about the insurance deductible situation, and that it would be a lot cheaper for me if I went to an infusion center first. And he said right out, he said, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I was telling people just to do this first and didn't tell them the other ways you can do things. And he was so kind about it and so helpful. And he said, even if you don't end up going with us, he said, please feel free to call us if you have any questions. Because he said, I know that this is a nightmare for so many people, if not most people that are new to this. He said, we're so willing to help people. And if the person you talk to doesn't know, we'll get you to someone who does. And that's true. A couple of times someone who didn't quite know, and they're like, hold on, let me get someone that does. And
that's great.
Being super knowledgeable. So I have that, and those have been like those people have been pointing me in the right direction. I need to call that pharmacist back and say, hey, this is my problem now. But it's
Please
really
help.
yeah, please help me. I'm poor.
Well,
Yeah.
that's great that you at least have some,
Yeah.
people that can help you along
Yeah.
this new trying to get those treatments set up and stuff.
Exactly.
So, besides the treatment aspect of the disease and, finding doctor and, that kind of stuff, how has it affected like your daily life, like your ability to work? I know you mentioned you were on disability. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So I've been on disability since I was, I want to say 24. And it was really hard to do in the first place. It requires a significant amount of pride that you need to just swallow pretty much. But it's actually something that unfortunately I am ashamed of every single day, because I'm almost 28, and as you said earlier, losing a significant part of our youth to this. So it's really hard not to compare yourself to people your age that are buying houses and married and all those sorts of things with really successful careers and those sorts of things. And
Yes.
Yes. With the help of my sister, she took a little bit of a non-traditional way to get where she is now. I'm going back to school, at an age where a lot of people don't, that sort of thing. Yeah. So she makes sure that I know that it's okay to take your time and to have your own timeline, instead of, feeling guilty because you didn't match the traditional one. And that has helped significantly. And of course, knowing other people that have a similar thing to what, like life timeline that's happening to me.
Yes.
So
yes.
It makes me feel less like the odd one out, and it makes it a lot easier. And every single day I do get better with it. But yeah, as far as like the amount of times I have various like job search things on my phone, and I always look and I'm like, oh, that'd be so cool to do or whatever. And I just like go in daydream mode where mine is like, wow, working a full-time job. Like,
dude, you sound so much like me. Like I have like the Indeed, job alerts, and there's so many jobs I've seen that I'm like,
yes,
oh, I can do that. And like, I blindly think like, yeah, I can function like a normal person. And I kind of like just shove my autoimmune encephalitis to the side. Like, no, you don't exist. Like, go away.
Yeah. Like, it's exactly it. And yeah, exactly. I'll be like, oh yeah, I could totally do that. And then like an hour later, I'm having issues and like, oh, I guess I can't.
Yeah, exactly.
It's oh God, it's interesting what happens. Things have leveled out as I've gotten older, or maybe just more used to managing what's happening without treatment. I don't know if it's just becoming more consistently bad, because
I'm sorry, we're both laughing at the fact that you're like, oh, I think it's like more consistently bad, and then we're just like laughing. No, but you're used to, you've gone an estimated 8 to 10 years of dealing with this. So it has become your normal. You don't know what normal is. Exactly. And so you've just accepted that, because you for the longest time had no choice but to accept that as your destiny.
It's like learning to living. Okay, same subject verb agreement. If it weren't for a sense of humor, I'm not really sure what would have happened to me by now.
Yeah. You gotta laugh so you don't cry. That's what I say.
Perpetual nervous laughter.
Yes.
All the time. Yeah, I've had to learn to live with it. So I've really related to, like you see it in movies and shows and all kinds of things where people have like some like sort of dark thing they're living with. Maybe it's, I don't know, like an addiction or something like that. My brother-in-law actually is such an inspiration with that stuff. And he's been sober for coming up, I think it might be 6 years this year.
Oh, wow.
That's yeah,
awesome.
He's such a great person. And he was talking about how those demons are still there, but you learn to live with them and you learn to tame them. And that really spoke to me. I have dealt with substance abuse issues in the past, but because I guess I have the chaos on my side in the sense of I don't feel like doing this anymore. Like I'm gonna go do something else, that sort of thing. So I guess I have that to help me not be long-term addicted to something. But yeah, that was something that really, really helped significantly in that. Wow, that's kind of what this is. A little bit, in the sense of living with something that you kind of have to learn to tame or deal with or something. Because if I hit that point where if I keep trying to fight it every single day, it had depleted and destroyed many aspects of my life. But once I started to sort of live with it and just kind of like meditation where you just acknowledge things and let it go. It's kind of like that. Things got easier. And that's where the consistently bad comes in. Because I just started to accept things the way they were.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if I spent every single day just, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you had no choice. So I think it seems like maybe like you came to that crossroad of I can either you kind of did at first the like crash and burn my life, like acting out kind of thing, but then you've kind of come full circle into the I acknowledge that this is happening and I accept it because you didn't really have a choice but to accept it because nobody would help you. But yeah, now that you're able to you're getting help and you're getting treatment. I hope that will, how do you feel, for your future now that you have a doctor who is going to help you? How do you feel about all that? Have you thought about it at all?
Yeah, it always comes back to what you said to me after you started to get, what you needed and everything, like last fall or something. And I remember we were talking about, wanting to go to school and that sort of thing. And I was in that particularly negative space of, what can I do? Like, other than exist,
Well, when you have an inflamed brain, it's a little difficult. Again, you can't just like shove it down out of the way and pretend it doesn't exist.
I can do that for periods of time when I'm on Indeed, but I remember you said to me that your future and your outlook on it changed a lot when you knew that there was help and when you did get the help you needed. And I just remember thinking like, wow, that's amazing. Like, I sound sarcastic right now, but I was like genuinely happy for you. But I was also like, wow, cool for me. Like,
no,
like, in the sense of like, I didn't think it could happen to me. And
me neither.
And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like, Maddie's, getting this outlook that she hasn't really ever had. And I was like, that's not something that will happen to me. So,
but surprise, it did. Thank goodness.
So that's where it kind of goes back to is, be like, wow, like she wasn't kidding. Things really did change with that. Just even knowing what's going on, and knowing that there's things that we can do, which is crazy that we actually have a solid route of like research backed things, which is, you know, something just, it's still weird to me to have that outlook of a genuine, I don't know, but it's in a positive way.
Yes. Yeah, that's how I so yeah, for those who don't know, I was diagnosed when I was in pediatric care, and then when I went to adult care, I struggled to find a doctor, and I recently found a good doctor within like the last year. And that's when I found that good doctor that was going to put me on all these, you know, new treatments and really get aggressive with this, is when I had that same like, I don't know what my future holds, but I'm so excited to see what happens. Because for once, because you have, it gives you hope when a doctor, they literally give, I mean, we were at the mercy of doctors essentially in our ability to live our lives, which is a very helpless place to be when you are having doctors who won't help you. But then when there's one it just takes one, takes one doctor, and that one doctor completely changes your outlook on life, and quite literally does change your life.
Yeah, it's just weird. It's weird to have that, like you said, just hopefulness of, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm excited to find out. Whereas before it was like, oh my God, there's a future. There's
like I have so many more years of my life left to just exist in this weird the fever dream. We're no more fever dream, we're on to real living. So
it's so weird.
So kind of just to wrap things up here, my final kind of question for you is there anything you want to say in terms of just about like autoimmune encephalitis, or for people listening, or, you know, any kind of words of wisdom that you've gathered on your journey?
Oh God, let me try to
positive, preferably.
No, there is the more I've been increasingly more positive because this doctor kind of restored my faith in that things can go right and not wrong.
Yes.
Very sad to say that, but I think one of the biggest things I've learned, and this was fairly recent because, you know, when you get mistreated by the medical system, you start to hold like ill will toward it, and, you know, you experience that trauma and you don't want to go to the doctor because you're afraid that, you know, nothing's wrong. But one of the biggest things I learned was that doctors aren't purposefully like being this way necessarily. Granted, there are doctors who that we've all dealt with them who are just downright nasty about like emergency rooms. That's been a big one. And then this one emergency room doctor called my neurologist, who promptly gave him the verbal slap of a century. And then this ER doctor came back down and he apologized to me. We ended up just having like a half-hour conversation about, this was after I'd been diagnosed, about why it's important not to just assume that people have a mental illness and they deserve to be in the psych unit, which I had spent fair amount of time in. And that's what this doctor wanted to do when I was there. He wanted to put me in a psych unit. So we were able to have that conversation. And that was something that, this happened maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but it was something that really opened my eyes into that. He just didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the biggest things. And this is what I was trying to make my original point before I got sidetracked, is that a lot of, if not, in my opinion, most of the issue is that they don't know, and there's a limited amount of resource to this sort of thing. And when someone comes to you and is experiencing depression and hallucinations, for example, like I was, you might genuinely not, like, you're probably not going to think, that there's a really serious thing going on. And I think ultimately it just kind of comes down to the lack of information that's available, and it just not being one of those things that's looked at right away, which I understand.
Mm-hmm.
It's a rare thing and it's really serious, so you might not like just automatically, test someone for that. But I mean, it's kind of the whole point of like the symposium that HESA does, is that bridge between neurology and psychiatry. That's really important because that bridge is, we're building it, but it's not there yet. And that's it. Hopefully this makes sense. I'm just trying to say.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
This disease, I mean,
Yeah.
it only, when I was diagnosed in 2014, like originally diagnosed in pediatric, from to now in 2022, how much has changed and grown is huge. But there is still, I feel like we're standing at the bottom of a mountain still, where we know it exists, but because it's so sort of a newer disease, it's not well recognized. Not very many people know about it. It is considered rare. So yes, again, it's like, doctors are trained to look for horses and not zebras. So it's often just not even a thought. So, but hey, what do you know? Zebras exist. So
I had, so I see a neuro-ophthalmologist every once in a while because I have like an unrelated like muscle issue with my eyes. It's called Twin syndrome, where they don't like always sync up. So I have to go to a special doctor to see that. And he made a comment. He had a medical student with him, and the medical student was just enamored because my eyes didn't line up together. He'd never seen that before. And I was just telling him like, oh yeah, my neck's kind of messed up because I have to turn my head I have to turn my whole body to like look at things. And when I'm driving, I really had to adapt to how I have to move around to, make sure I have a full field of view. And this kid was talking about something, and we were talking about like the chronic, like really bad dry eyes that I have. Just dry mouth, like I deal with that. I think most of us, I feel like that's something a lot of us deal with, but with AE, I'm not really sure. But the doctor told him, the kid asked a question, and the doctor, I guess the medical student, I shouldn't just say kid, the doctor told him, I will never forget this. He said, if you keep looking for things, you're going to keep finding things that are wrong, and it's not wrong. And I wish I could remember the exact quote, but it was something along those lines. And I just remember thinking, that's good, but it's also dangerous.
Yes.
Because in the sense of like the zebras and the horses, if you keep thinking you're looking for zebras in this field of horses, you're going to keep thinking you're seeing zebras, but there might not actually be any. But if you're not aware they could be in that field, you're just going to keep looking for horses, and somehow this zebra is going to go blend in with whatever it is that a zebra might blend in with. But hopefully that makes sense. My entire point is that a lot of it is the different philosophies that doctors might learn during residency or during medical school, that sort of thing. So my point is that I don't think all doctors hold ill will toward people. And that's really hard to think that they don't. But I think in general, like we talked about, the lack of information is there, and they just genuinely don't know.
Well, they like, this is one disease. A neurologist doesn't just specialize in one disease,
Right.
typically. And they have so many other patients as well. So yeah, that is
Right.
Yeah, that's something me too in my journey that I think about too. Sometimes I think maybe I was a little too lenient with some of the way some doctors treated me.
Yes.
But I also try to remember that they are human.
Yeah.
And that I'm not their only patient, and exactly, you don't know what you don't know, kind of.
Yeah.
So
it's a really fine line for me to, like, it's walking a thin line, I should say. And like, oh, they don't know, but also the way a lot of these doctors act when they don't know something, they're so confidently unsure about something. That's dangerous in its own right. And so overall, I think it's a mess.
Yes, to put it quite simply, being a zebra in navigating our medical system, our medical system is not exactly designed to handle zebras very well. So unfortunately, we often slip through the cracks.
And even finding the mental health patients that have a neurological cause of things, which is terrifying to think about. The amount of stories you hear of people being in psych units that actually had something else going on. But overall, I just think there's a huge lack of access to information and more widespread information and a little more cohesiveness between these things. And there's a laundry list, like, of course, but ultimately that bridge between psychiatry and neurology is, I think that's really going to significantly change things. So I definitely I don't think it should be crazy for a mental health patient to say, hey, I've been dealing with this for a while now, can I get like a brain scan? Whereas if you look at what are considered to be like normal or the right way to do things in psychiatry is, ruling out those brain issues from the start.
Absolutely.
But what I see happening in practice is, it's the opposite. And as we know, theory and practice are two different things, but
Yes. I think you touched on that. No, I was going to say the same thing, and you touched on it beautifully. Just the hopefully in the future, the theory will be that autoimmune encephalitis is one of the things that is ruled out when there is a sudden onset of strange psychiatric symptoms. But for now, that's not the case. And especially in your case, that was not the case, because you went so many years just beating the psychological side of things. So
real quick to add to that, like acute weird onset stuff, and also things that haven't been responding to treatment that well.
Yes, I think that is a good point, because it isn't always acute. That's like a sort of pet peeve with me with what most doctors, I feel like, picture what encephalitis is that it's very acute. But now and I know you can relate to that, having been sick for almost 8 to 10 years, that encephalitis can be a low and slow inflammation too. And I think that was a very important point.
And it was kind of funny when I told my GP after I found out everything that was going on. I told her, she's like, that makes a lot of sense. And then it was like, and we talked about, getting my vaccinations before I become like officially immunocompromised, that sort of thing. But I was like, in my head, I remember thinking, really? Like, is that all it, like, just okay, that makes sense. Like, I love that's
all you have to say.
That she was instantly like, but it was just kind of crazy to me that after all this fight and just heartbreak and trauma and everything, just to hear a doctor say, oh yeah, okay, was so wonderful.
You agree. Thank you.
She sees my record. She's like, oh, cool. Like, wow, this is actually really nice.
Yes.
You're not going to ask me if I want to take a drug test? I don't
No.
know.
I could get used to this.
Yeah,
This.
Yeah.
Being believed.
Yeah, right. But yeah, anyway.
Well, Kayli, thank you so much for being willing to be interviewed and for sharing your very crazy journey with autoimmune encephalitis. I thank you as part of HESA. You know, who knows, your story may help somebody else, you know, figure out what's
Yeah.
going on, somebody else that may be stuck in, you know, the psychiatric side of things as well.
Exactly.
So thank you so much, and I will see you around.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.